we need to have an honest conversation about the assault against masculinity. Do you ever stop and wonder why men are under so much pressure these days? Or are you feeling it yourself? Are you feeling like there are so many things against men and trying to place the blame on men for all of society's problems? Well, today is the video for you, and you want to make sure that you hang around all the way to the end of the video, because I'm going to share a few things that are assaulting masculinity in today's world, and the third one that I want to share might surprise you. When we use the phrase masculinity, it's so important that we start our conversation around what I would call original masculinity. You might have heard that phrase on the channel before, or you could be new to it. When I say original masculinity, I'm trying to do my part to bring a renaissance or a reboot on what masculinity really means. And what it really means are these three words. It means to protect, to provide, and to empower. You see, my belief is that that is why men were put on the planet. That's how we were hardwired. We are here to protect our family and our friends, the people and the places that we love. We're also here as providers. And as I always say, we are not saying that women can't be providers just because men are. What I am saying is men are meant to be providers and not slack off on that. And the third one is that we are here to empower, which means we help unlock other people, the women, the children, the friends, the people in our life. Our role, our privilege, our specialty skill to be at our own best is to unlock other people. So we're here to protect, provide, and empower. And that's what we mean by original masculinity. But in the last 15 to 20 years especially, we have seen an exponential ramping up of the assault against masculinity. You would have heard by now loose and lazy phrases like toxic masculinity and all of these kinds of words. I'm fighting hard against that, and I'm saying this very strong statement that I don't believe there is such a thing as toxic masculinity. I do believe there is a thing called toxic behavior of all humans, whether they are male or female, and that comes back to the fact that we are all broken in our own individual way. But I want to rescue the word masculinity from that phrase attached to toxic, because really masculinity at its original best does nothing but good for everybody. So when we talk about violent men, when we talk about evil men, when we talk about corrupt men, of which there are some, I will concede, but when we talk about those types of men, we should not attach their masculinity to their negative traits, because masculinity stands alone as a created type and trait that is meant to do good to everyone, everywhere, all the time. But as I said a moment ago, we are seeing a huge ramping up of the assaults against masculinity. There is, without a doubt, an agenda in some pockets of society, even in politics, even in some big business, depending on how deep you actually look. There is an agenda against the importance of family, and especially the importance of men and masculinity in family. Today, I want to talk about three specific assaults that are going on against masculinity, and what can you as a man do about that assault in your own life, in your own family, and in your own community. Let's get right into it now. The first thing that I see as a huge assault against original masculinity is the rise of extreme feminism. Now, you see, feminism in its first wave, if we go back to the 1960s and 70s, feminism was nowhere near what it is today. In fact, I don't even think feminism knows what it is anymore. They've strayed so far from their original course. They used to be about a sincerity of equal opportunity and equal rights. Well, these days, some sectors of extreme feminism can't even define for you what a woman is. They don't even know the answer to that question. And so their own mission drift has gotten further and further off track, and they've become more and more dangerous, and they've become enraged and vitriolic towards all men just because men are men. This is dangerous, it's reckless, and it's lazy, but there are pockets of extreme feminism that will even come out with wild, outlandish statements saying, what is the point of even having men here? Well, to make such an out-of-your-brain kind of statement is either just to be provocative, or you are actually so deprived in your intellect that you've forgotten basic biology that none of us got here without a man. None of us got here without a woman. But extreme feminism has gone to the nth degree in not standing for women, but standing against men. Now, I heard someone say to me years and years and years ago when they were training me in my early leadership journey, they said, whatever you do, Andrew, make your vision about what you stand for, not what you stand against. Because standing against something as the core of your vision only sets you up for negativity and error and over excessive statements and viewpoints and perspectives. But when you stand in favor of something or for something, that helps you to stay on track. And those words were so powerfully true. But these days, extreme feminism has become far more about standing against something, and that something is men. And in particular, that something is trying to throw all men into the same basket and in the same category, and to label across all men whatever the particular hurt or trauma or damage that was experienced by that extreme feminist. Now, again, as I always do, I will concede there are men who have done bad and evil things that have damaged people, and those individual men should be held to account for their actions. However, the answer to a better society is not the elimination of all of the gender in the species because of the actions of some. That is not the answer, but that's where extreme feminism has gotten to. They are all about what they stand against, and they don't even know what they stand for anymore. The assault against masculinity by extreme feminism has become just that, extreme. The second assault that I want to talk about, because I want our eyes to be wide open to the fact that this is a reality. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not someone sitting on the extreme left or extreme right. This stuff is in your face every single day. Number two, assault against masculinity, and in particular, original masculinity, according to our definition, is the wokeness in our mass media. This has been rising and rising and rising since the first foray into picking on men in cheap sitcoms in the early 80s. You might remember the rise of the world famous and still loved by many TV show, The Simpsons. Probably that was the archetype of what it meant and what it looked like to pick on the father figure in the family home. Now, some of you would say, yeah, but Homer Simpson was a dumb man. And I would say to you, he was also a fictional character in a cartoon form. It was done deliberately. It was done on purpose to paint the man of the house as being stupid, the one who would stuff up, the one who would make a mistake. And this is still sliding through in our advertising, our sitcoms, our reality TV shows, that the woman is hyper intelligent and the man is utterly stupid and bound to trip over himself if you don't carry him every step he's got to take. This assault has to stop. It's unrealistic, it's untrue, and it's lazy. Can you imagine advertisers and those in mainstream media creation daring to portray the woman in a marriage or a relationship as the dummy who makes the mistakes all the time? The outrage would be deafening. And it just goes to show how saturated, how baptized in the vinegar of this nonsense society has become, that people don't even notice it anymore. That the man, the husband, the dad is automatically the dummy who stuffs it up all the time, and the woman is the one who's got to hold it all together. She's the capable one, she's the intelligent one, she's the hard-working one, she's the problem solver, and the man just happens to be a male token add-on because supposedly you're meant to have one of those in the family. This is deliberate, this is strategic, and it's getting more and more brazen in our world today. It used to be subtle, it used to be mildly intelligent and creative in its expression. These days it's just explicit and in our face, and it's a continuing assault against the person of the husband and the father and that role in households, and it's deliberate, and we need to be a little bit disgusted by it. It's not realistic, it's not true, it's not helping anyone, it's not even helping the women who are often behind the generation of this stuff in creative decision-making places. It's not good enough, and we've got to do something about it. The third assault against masculinity that you might be surprised I'm going to talk about, because I could talk about 20 or 30 of them, but here's the third one that I want to talk about today. An assault against original masculinity is actually coming from the alpha bros. Now you go, alpha bros, what do you mean? Well, if you haven't heard that expression, let me give you a little bit of an unpacking here. When we use the phrase alpha bros or similar labels, we're talking about that crew of men who have decided, or by default and most likely by peer pressure because they can't come up with their own original thought, they have landed in this molasses of positioning where they have begun to shrink the definition of manhood even further by suggesting that a real man is just someone who gets out there and lifts weights and takes over the world and dominates. And it's kind of boringly cavemanish. In fact, you can see it all over social media where there are men who've become highly followed. I'm thinking of one in particular right now whose only videos are that he gets on in front of the camera with his gym singlet on, and he gets on there and he says, "Are you feeling depressed? You need to go to the effing gym. Have you got relationship problems? You just need to go to the effing gym." And that is his only answer to every problem that men apparently face. Now, let me be really clear. I am an advocate for physical health and fitness, but I will also say without apology, there are a huge quantity of challenges that lifting weights and running on treadmills will not solve. When we talk about original masculinity, we're talking about men who know how to protect, they know how to provide, they know how to empower, but they also recognize that understanding your emotional wiring is not weakness, but rather it's a superpower to understand your own self-awareness and be able to step and navigate through some of the challenges that come against our mental health, our emotional health, and our relational health. Sometimes we hear some men out there who say, "Oh, you know, guys who are depressed, I haven't got the time of day for them. They just need to..." I heard one guy say recently, those kinds of guys just need to drink a glass of cement and shut the F up. Well, that man who's saying that either has never been through that kind of challenge and so he's disqualified from comment on that basis. But a compounding problem is if he ever goes into that kind of a challenge in his own mental health, he is so badly prepared for that moment in his life and will struggle. Secondly, if any of his mates go into that kind of a decline, pity those friends who've got to put up with this fool who talks that way about such a serious and real issue. In order to be original masculinity and a man of strength and power, you do not need to ignore what's going on internally and just go to the effing gym, like we are being told by some of these narrow-minded meatheads, the alpha bros who think you can just manhandle the entirety of life. It's not reality. They are guaranteed to hit the wall at some point, and I am concerned for them when they do. We don't need that kind of assault against masculinity. Why? Because original, healthy, helpful masculinity is well-rounded. It understands the internal world, it understands the external world. It knows how to take time with dealing with real internal issues, but also stay on its game helping others in their life. A truly masculine man is not defined by his masculinity only in his physical stature, or the achievements on his resume, or the balance in his bank account, and certainly not by things that some of these protagonists are saying, like the number of women that he's managed to bed over the last 10 or so years. When we talk about masculinity and what we need to see more of in our society, we're talking about men who know how to protect, provide, and empower, but they're not so narrow that they can't recognize there are other challenges that happen in the inner life, and you've got to have the toolkit to be able to handle that stuff as well. Well, these are some of the assaults. What's the answer? The answer is simple, and I'm talking right down the lens here to you, my friend, today. Every man watching this, the answer is pursue original masculinity with all your heart. Do not put your life on hold for the aggressive allegations of the extreme feminists. Do not sit idly by and just allow the woke mainstream media agenda to wash over your brain as if nothing matters. Stand up against it. And lastly, combat this conversation that's going on, particularly on social media platforms, that's telling all men that if you're just an alpha bro, then you'll solve all your problems. All of these things are false help and dysfunctional in nature. The answer to these assaults is for more men to be truly masculine. Go after your masculinity. Raise your sons to be masculine men. Be a masculine man for your wife and for your partner. Look after your children. This is what it means to be original masculinity. And if we can get an uprising of young, middle-aged and older men who say, I am tired of being told that my masculinity is a problem and I'm going to double down on this, stand up and be a masculine man because I realize this is what our world needs right now. If we could do that by the millions, we might just stand a chance of changing the world for good another time. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts. Why don't you drop those in the comments below? Tell me what you think about these 3 assaults that I've identified. Is there a 4th? Is there a 5th that concerns you? Do you want to ask a question? Let's get involved with this conversation, and I would love to see you in another video real soon.